And we're going. Well, actually,
Oh, you did something. I have to clear it, not you. Because you started the stream, I had to clear the recording and then.
We finally have Coastal full staff and then Cora left.
Yeah, I heard Coraline.
Yeah. Have you seen her?
No, she's at Maine, right? Did Caroline take her? Did you know Caroline? You were here.
Oh, yeah. I think I mean, that's an idea, maybe.
Oh, you didn't hear that from me. I don't know. I'm
No,
just
I don't
saying,
know
like,
either.
did she? I mean, I asked her.
Makes sense. I know I thought.
Like, oh, I got a person. Let me call.
Right.
Or it could have been coincidence.
I could have,
There was an opening and
and it worked out. But yeah, so now we have, so all these shifts in roles, but we're getting there.
so her,
And Eileen,
but Eileen
Into
moved,
Carolyn.
she just moved over, right?
So we have Jane, so she's
Okay,
she's in Eileen's position.
okay,
And then Monica became an academic coordinator. so
right,
now
that
we have-
happened, that was happening when I was here. Yeah, and Michelle's here, right? And then, that's it?
And so we have still one empty spot, yes. Yeah,
And,
the team, we were here with, when Crystal started.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And,
Yeah, actually, I saw her, I didn't see her, I was doing a webinar on anti-racist vocabulary over there. I was kind of running it, and I saw her pop up in the participant list. I was like, oh, good. You know? I was tempted to, and I'm like, I don't want to screw anything up. I'm not gonna chatter and say, hey.
then it would be on the screen.
Right, I should have did it offline, like on Google Chat, but I thought, I'm like, no, I'm not gonna touch it. Because it was the first one I've ever done.
Yeah, I know.
By
that's
myself, right?
nerve-wracking.
It is. Well,
I remember the first one, I wasn't even alone.
and I had to do this. Oh, this was, and we had, he's got like this whole like production thing. And then I had to have this just to make sure everything was looking right. I was backstage and I had to move people in backstage and take them out and give them spotlight. And it was all this stuff. I was like, okay.
And it was just you.
Yeah, I was freaking out.
That's a lot.
I mean, it is a lot and it was hard,
It was,
but I just never did it. Right.
plus there's a lot of things that work.
Yeah.
Not your message that says this is being recorded.
I did.
You did hear it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't paying attention, but maybe I'm so used to hearing it. that
Yeah,
just-
you blacked it
Yeah.
out.
No, I heard it.
I heard it. too.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's recording.
Yeah, it's recording.
Awesome.
Yeah, so, we usually,
I get it mic'd up.
we could, what time is it?
5:12.
Yeah, let's get them mic'd up and then,
He's mic'd up.
Yeah, she wanted to take yours.
and then,
And his is on, right? It's turned on? Okay.
I wish there was an indicator on here to say that, but there isn't. So
Say what?
The microphone is.
Oh, right. No, we just assumed.
Do you think you can fix the purple screen? Hi.
I did.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
How are you, my friend?
Good, good, and you? No, abrazo, nada más. ¿Todo bien?
Bien.
Sometimes I my pad, but what happens is this device has this device that they don't look properly and the purple screen like that.
It just started happening like 2 lectures ago.
Typically, if you could just unplug it.
Good.
Told you he's our expert.
The old, the good old trick.
When he gives me something to do, I know he knows he's confident I can do it. Because he knows what he's doing. When he shows me how to do it.
When I gave him a webinar.
That's what I was telling her. I was freaking out. I'm like, I have to do backstage and this and spotlight.
I'm free to touch anything too much.
Right.
I've done almost 90 of those.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Series.
And they do that every week, right?
It's weekly.
Oh, yeah, you know, okay.
I hope it. I haven't said it, but
Right.
so the students are in class until 5:15. So
5:15. Oh, so it gives them some time.
Got some Irish ones for that. Actually, I can stay on the side of the club, stand on the field of the function.
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that.
I was there for the first quarter of that game, and I had to leave. My daughter called, she had to to ride.
When you're ready to up your communication presentations, call him for consulting. And I mean, he's got things, he controlled the Washington DC seminar that was going on, a webinar that was going on from here. And he had like their names coming in and out and zoomed in here and zoomed out, and zoomed in.
It's right up stuff. That's way more.
Who does?
Stuff.
We got a license. Max.
Right. He won't run it, but he'll, unless you pay him, but you know, I don't mean pay him, I meant.
That would be so good. Even if you came in, yeah.
Yeah, I can send you. You want his contact?
Mike's my
Awesome.
boss, so
Yeah.
Your boss.
Yeah, and Andrew, he's on our team with Andrew.
I'm older than him, but he's my boss. I'm just kidding.
I know it's. But it's so weird here.
Mike.
Like,
Yeah, we're all on the same team. And then so over at Keel, we have myself, another guy, and then Tim. Here's Andrew, and we just interviewed for his secondary position, my position.
Good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool people down there, you know, I didn't get to meet any, but I'm not one of them. The one that I don't believe in.
Brock.
Yeah.
Brock is the top candidate. So there were a couple of top candidates. Maine took Matt McCovey. I don't know if you know him, or McCoven. Yeah, he was at HR, and then he moved over to Maine. Now Mike's got a choice. Brock isn't one of them, and then the other two, I'm not sure. I don't want to mention names. I know who they are, but they're internal.
Come over to Scott. I wanted him so bad.
Just for his name.
Just for his name. But he had no IT experience at all. I don't know why he was in the interview.
So who did you interview for this position?
I interviewed the people for this. Oh, to come back.
You're an interviewee. You missed us so much.
Yeah. No, I mean, I did miss you guys, but I didn't miss the.
Thank you so much.
All right, you're going up or are you heading out? Okay, I'll be up there in a second. Or a minute, whenever we start. So Carrie, oh, you know that. I gotta get the kids from swim. Give me this. Stefano speaking or not? Just the important. It's just.
Mhm.
Right.
¿Qué hora es? Ahora siguen, ¿no? Ay, yo no tengo reloj. No, hay que hacerlo con el móvil. Mm. Bueno, pero podemos controlar. Si lo dejas allí, cuando hablas tú, controlo yo y al revés, y así ya está.
I'll do the lecture and you guys do the yes.
Good evening. Thanks for being here. It is my pleasure tonight to introduce and to welcome to the podium Camilla Mileto and Fernando Vegas from Valencia. Camilla Mileto and Fernando Vegas are architects and professors at the Universidad Politécnica de Valencia in Spain, where they teach architectural composition and conservation. They have been honored with numerous international awards for their exceptional research, architectural projects, and dedication to the preservation of cultural heritage. These include the prestigious first European Union Prize in 2004 and in 2011, Europa Nostra Awards in 2008 and 2013, as well as the Domus Award in 2012, among many others. And they just reminded me that they are from last year, they also are members of the prestigious Academy of Architecture of France, as well as the directors of the UNESCO Chair for Earthen Architecture, Constructive Cultures and Sustainable Development for Spain. Now, over the past 2 decades, Mileto and Vegas have focused their research and professional endeavors on sustainable architectural solutions. Their approach revolves around the concept of zero-kilometer architecture, which prioritizes local materials, techniques, and labor to minimize the carbon footprint while bolstering the regional economy. And in Spain, their approach has not only sparked the imagination of contemporary architects, but also stimulated the growth of local trades and economies. Furthermore, it has instilled in communities a profound appreciation for architecture as a legacy of the past that must be preserved and meticulously designed to shape a sustainable and promising future. Today, we're honored to have these 2 distinguished speakers share their wealth of knowledge and experience with us. Please join me in welcoming to the podium Camilla and Fernando.
Yo me quedo aquí.
Is it working? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Something happens. Okay. So thank you very much for the invitation. We are honored to be here. I mean, it's so nice to be here and to share with you, I mean, part of our research and our work, our preservation work, this time on earth and architecture. Let's see. Okay, first of all, I think we should ask ourselves, what is earth and architecture? I mean, first of all, what's that? I mean, it sounds like something like rare or something difficult to find. And and why is it interesting today for us? So this lecture will begin with speaking about what is earth and architecture. We go on like speaking about earth and construction techniques, and then showing the values, the threats, the possibilities. We will show part of our research in Spain, not just an example, I mean, as a scheme that could be applied to other countries, to other places. We'll speak about protection, conservation, restoration, and also about, we'll show some restoration cases and finish with innovation for the tradition. So it's going to be, I mean, literally a trip in all the planets. So fasten your seat belts and let's go on. So first of all, what is earth and architecture? Earth and architecture is the most interesting thing is that it's this nature that we shape into architecture, and it belongs at the end to the landscape. If we see this village in Morocco, we can almost not distinguish between the earthen and the building houses. Earth and architecture is literally all over the world, in all the continents, and you can see examples from everywhere. If you have time, you can have a look at the captions. There are photos everywhere, from United States also. And we have been studying, for example, not only in the Iberian Peninsula, but we have been studying in the European Union, the earth and architecture through a research project we had. And you can see the map that we developed together with other partners some years ago. But also we have been studying earth and architecture in the States. That sometimes say, is there any earth and architecture in the States? Yes, there is, and there is a lot. And there's a big variety, and it's so interesting and so rich. So as I see you curious looking at that, I mean, don't worry, we have 2 articles that we already wrote on earth and architecture. And we will share with you, and if you want to read them, about the techniques and about the preservation work on earth and architecture in this country. Earth and architecture is, that way we could say it's a local heritage, but it's also a global heritage, because I mean, you can find it everywhere, literally. And it's a wealth of architecture with different techniques. It's the same material, but used in different shapes, different types of techniques, depending on the conditions, on the weather, on many, many factors. In fact, recently there has been an initiative to see the inventory of earth and architecture in the UNESCO World Heritage List. How many of these UNESCO World Heritage List was, or it is, belonging to the category of earth and architecture? And it was discovered that 150 sites, let's say 20% of the UNESCO World Heritage sites, of cultural mixed sites, are made with earth. So let's go second chapter, earth and construction. As earth as a construction material, it's a wonderful material because it's shapeable. You can use it many ways. I mean, you can see these are photos made the last year. So there's another thing to say about earthen architecture is that it is still alive in many places of the world. Even in the States, we have seen people working with adobe or with ram earth. I mean, still there. And if we speak about techniques, there are like 3 big families of techniques. One would be the monolithic structure. That would be ram earth, that we call in Spanish tapia, or pissé in French, or maçonne in Italy. You can see here that 2 builders, one from Morocco, one from China, in a very similar way, with a very similar formwork, because this is some kind of a international heritage. This type of, I mean, this formworks goes back thousands of years and is still being used in some places. So, and you can see some variants with earth, only with earth, with lime, enriching with lime, or with bricks, combined with bricks, with a gypsum. There's another type of monolithic structure in this family. It would be the cob, and so, or called pared de mano, bosch, terra paglia, that we can find also all over the world. And then the second family would be the earthen masonry. So, for example, the adobe would be the most famous or most well-known, but also turf, or what you call here sod, or I mean stacked cob balls, handmade adobe. Many possibilities depending on the place, on the possibilities, etc. And the third big family with the mixed structure would be the mixed structure between the vegetal plant or branches or wood, timber with earth. So it would be like the wattle and daub type or the half timber type. You can see here some samples. We can use also earth to build vaults and domes, or to excavate them, to dig out them, to make roofs, to help to isolate roofs, to make renderings. These are from Africa, from India.
So after seeing a little bit, I think we have to be more. Okay. So after seeing what is or what we are calling earthen architecture, now is why it's important, or why it's still important, which are the values that we are still seeing in this type of architecture. So if we try to go around what we in general speak about, the 3 pillars of sustainability, that is economic, ambiental or medioambiental, or natural environment, and social, economic or social values, we try to find which type of values we can find in earthen architecture related with these pillars. So in the economic point, from the economic point of view, of course, it's a very cheap material, it's everywhere, we can find it very easily, it's quick, available everywhere where we need to build something. It's not required transformation, industrial transformation, energy, so we can do it with our hands, so it's quite cheap in this way, and it's also very easy. It's not very easy. It's easy to manipulate. You have to know how to do it, but you can do it easily. From the construction point of view, at the other end, it's something that we can building with a very good strength. It's not something weak. It could be very, very useful. Elastic and the material is elastic with a good adherence. Is fireproof. If chemical stable. If volumetrical stable. If ductile, and of course is recyclable. Earth is coming from the earth and is going to the earth. So nothing is more recyclable than that. But also is good in from a biological point of view, because it's provide us with a good acoustic isolation, with thermal inertia, with permeability, and it's not toxic at all. It's completely compatible with a human being. From an environment point of view, of course, Earth is going to Earth again. So it's something that it's integrating with the surroundings. It's not affecting the landscape. It's in a modern way of view that it's energy efficient and so on. It's efficient in energy. It's efficient during the construction and then during the lifetime of the building. And of course, it's a reduce of waste. From a social point of view, or sociocultural point of view, it's related with our culture, with our place, with our local history in many, many places and in many countries. At the same time, it's a type of architecture that could really connect us with our culture, with our past, but with our present and our future. So it's something that we can understand it as like an architecture that could teach us about sustainability, about our culture, about our history. And then from an intangible point of view, it's related with the knowledge, the how to do it. It's something that is related with craft people, with people that know how to do, how to construct it, how to build with these kind of techniques. So if we still use this architecture, we really could contribute to this maintenance of knowledge and people and craft people. So if we try to organize all these from all the values that we saw, we can organize it around the three pillars: sociocultural value, socioeconomical value, and environmental value. So we can say maybe that it's still interesting in the world nowadays because we are trying to find something sustainable or some sustainable architecture, and maybe earthen architecture could give us an idea or could give us a possibility to work on that. But of course, nobody is perfect. So earthen architecture at the same time is weak in front of other things. For example, water, atmospheric agents, so all natural threats, also anthropic threats and social threats. Earthen architecture is weak, we can say. It's weak in front of water, especially wind, and especially the combination of water, rainfalls, and wind. So sometimes we have to restore it, to maintain, and it needs a maintenance that is not every 10 years. Maybe it needs a maintenance every year, every 5 years. So we need to maintain this architecture. Of course, there was, during the lunch, we were speaking with some students about the week of earthen architecture in front of earthquakes. We saw in Morocco some time ago, or 1 month ago, it seems that everything was because the building was made with earth, but it's not. So it's weak, maybe, but it's not more weak than another architecture. The thing is that traditional architecture is something that it's what it remains from a long experience during the history. So maybe what we have nowadays is the best that arrived to us. So if we really see this architecture, there are many devices to be strength in front of earthquakes, for example, or other threats. So it's not everything because it's made by earth. Is not this is not that the problem really. We can use it also in earthquake prone area, and it's possible to restore it, to recover also in these places. Another point is floods and cyclones, especially floods. Of course, it's more or less a weak architecture in front of water. So in the case of floods, the water remaining during a time. So it's, of course, it's a problem for earthen architecture, but we can recover it, we can restore it, and we can, of course, organize with some devices in front of this type of situation. Maybe the worst problem that we have is the social threats, because we have different type of problems related with the culture. And this, especially the modern culture or the contemporary culture. The first one is, of course, the movement of population. So, for example, abandoned, and with the abandoned is also the lack of maintenance of this architecture. At the same time, the functional obsolescence. There are a lot of traditional buildings that are not used nowadays, so we have to find another use. But especially, I think the worst problem is the social discredit of this architecture. In many places, this architecture is related, of course, with tradition, with history and so on, but especially with poverty. So if we relate this architecture with poverty, of course, it's something that nobody wants. So in many cases, all around the world, we see the same process. The people don't want to live in this kind of buildings because they are related with the poor past. So people prefer a concrete building, new concrete or horrible building in front of this traditional architecture. So this probably the worst problem that we have, more than physical and other things. So now we show very quickly something about our research, specific research in Spain. Spain is probably one of the places of Europe where we can find more earthen architecture. It's really everywhere. And we can find earthen architecture in all types of buildings, from the monuments like the Alhambra, or towers, fortresses, castles, church, civil buildings, but also traditional dwellings, productive buildings, little houses, little villages, or more towns and villages. So it's everywhere with a lot of different type of architecture. Maybe not everybody knows that the Alhambra is built with earth. So it's maybe the most famous monument in Spain, and it's built with earth. But also this is something that is not so well known. This is a building built by Gaudí in Barcelona, and is built with rammed earth. So this is a building, is the entrance of the property of wealth that was a very rich family in Barcelona that paid for all the work of Gaudí in Barcelona. So it's not a matter of money. They decided to build it with rammed earth because it was the best way to build at that time, for the insulation, for the ventilation, for the tradition, for the economic way. So for a lot of points was the best solution. We have a lot of different techniques. I don't know if we found like 70 or 80 different techniques that we can find around Spain. Of course, from the old period, we have from the Iberian period, so the prehistory times, through the Romans, through the Islamic period, till the 19th century. And well, these are the maps of the distribution, for example, of ram, earth, and cob, that it's almost in almost in all the territory, really, but the north. And then the adobe with many different solutions, and then half timber and waterland daub. So we saw that we have monumental heritage and we have vernacular heritage. And we have to speak about the state of conservation of one and the other. In the case of monumental heritage, we have a lot of big fortresses, towers, and so on. They are all national monuments, so they receive money for the maintenance, for the conservation, and so on. And it's not the case of vernacular heritage. Vernacular heritage in many cases is private. And I was explaining before, there's no very good appreciation of this architecture. So because the people that own this architecture, they didn't recognize the value of this architecture, they don't put any money for starting these buildings. Of course, we have castles and churches in bad state also. It's not only vernacular architecture we have, but it's possible to find money for these buildings, of course. This is the situation of vernacular architecture. So these are many villages completely built with ram earth or with the adobe. And you can see any type of intervention, with a lot with cement, renderings, and so on. If you follow the rubbish bins in the villages, you always find earthen architecture, always. And that's the image of how much we value this architecture. So if you follow the rubbish bin, you find our earthen architecture, and there are other places where in front earthen architecture, you find a Ferrari. So which is the difference? Is the appreciation that we have for this architecture. So there are places where they really could do it, and we cannot. So we are still working in this, hope we could do something. So we start many years ago with some projects, research projects, to try to, first of all, to understand what we have, and second point, what we can do, how we can restore, conserve, preserve this architecture. So this was one of the first projects about ram earth all around the Iberia Peninsula. To learn, the idea was learn what we have done in a good way, in a bad way, but to try to do better now. So this was the idea of this project. When we finished this, we tried to pass to research the vernacular and dwellings, traditional dwellings, that is quite more difficult, because for monuments we have projects and we can more or less know what the people are doing, and it's much more difficult with vernacular architecture, but we have done also. And then we passed to try to understand the risks, the natural, social, anthropic risks, and the strategy to improve the resilience. So studying also monumental and vernacular architecture.
So we made.
No lo hacen ellos.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Well, we made a data collection of cases of vernacular architecture in all Spain. I mean, this map is not updated. I mean, there are many more points that you can see. And we were studying the constructive techniques and variants all around Spain. And we're studying the influence of geographical factors. So where I found so much rain, so much heat, so much timber, which type of technique I'm using. So we were looking for climatic factors, social factors, and we study the weaknesses, the threats, and risks. So we can classify them in three big families: the natural ones like water, atmospheric agents, or catastrophes; the anthropic ones like transformation and the use of inadequate materials; and the social that Camilla was speaking about, the abandonment, the social discredit, the loss of know-how, demographic pressure, etc. Okay, and this is something interesting because we can find in all cultures, in all languages, a kind of proverb that says, "Give a good hat and a good boots, and it will take care of itself." So as long as the ram earth or earthen wall it has a boots, so has something that separates it from the earth, from the humidity, and a hat, something to protect, it will last. Because if not, there comes all these type of problems that begin to. So we were studying the type of problems, the type of degradation that we can find in these walls, and we would try to make in a scientific way to measure the vulnerability in front of this natural risk. So we took like 50 cases of vernacular architecture, and we studied the vulnerability against the earthquake, floods, desertification, or rainfall. So we studied a type of house, and we studied the height, the situation, the possibility of having some adjacent houses or not, to be a little sunk in the earth or to be very tall, etc. And we apply the Delphi method to assign scientific values to this vulnerability. So we assess at the end. I mean, all these type of houses are kind of a 1 to 5 degree of vulnerability. And after that, after trying that, we apply that to 258 cases of vernacular architecture. And so these are some of the results. I mean, this could be a whole lecture itself. Just to tell that we studied that. We made some laboratory analysis, like aging and weathering analysis with some tests. And we also studied the social impact factors, and we tried also to organize in a degree of vulnerability, or social vulnerability, sorry. And now we are in the 4th project called Sustainable Adaptive Reuse of Earthen Architecture and its Lessons for Contemporary Architecture, from the point of view of carbon footprint and also bioclimatic behavior, etc. So let's go to the 5th chapter, the protection, conservation, and restoration. And we have to distinguish if we are speaking about monumental architecture or vernacular architecture, because monumental architecture normally is listed architecture, while vernacular architecture is not listed. And one is protected when the other is not protected, or valued and not valued. One is has a project, an intervention project for historic preservation. The other sometimes has a project, but many times it's just without project. And so sometimes some of the monumental architecture has some intervention criteria or public funds, while the vernacular architecture is linked normally to functional needs and it's privately funded. So we were studying also the evolution of the type of intervention in this monumental architecture, and the type of techniques used and how they worked. Because I mean, it's good to know what happened. I mean, frankly, say not to point to you're guilty of that, I mean, just to see, did it work what you made? Okay, let's learn everybody from that and let's apply it. So, and we saw. I mean, you could say the type of technique or the type of intervention depended on the moment of the time of the 80s or the 90s or whatever. And of course, the more compatible ones were the more successful ones. Okay, and with vernacular architecture happens much more like this, much more the same, because the problem is that with vernacular architecture, it is much harder to find or to trace the project, or to trace what has been done, etc. because there are many types of intervention in vernacular architecture, like the little repair that we can find an isolated repair here and there, or the maintenance as a continuous task of just helping the building to continue, to the updating, normally updating linked to an aesthetic updating, or partial rehabilitation or adaptive reuse, or a global adaptive reuse, sometimes a very hard to swallow. Sometimes enlargement that is done with other materials normally, or even demolition because of this discredit or whatever, because of the thinking about new architecture would be better, or very, very few cases of restoration or historic preservation. That's the truth. So we have like functional obsolescence, population migration, social discredit, lack of valorization, takes to abandonment, degradation, loss. This is the mechanism, and it is an architecture we can say that it's without architects. But the conservation or the intervention is made also without architects, for good and for bad. Normally for bad. And one of the main reasons is that they cannot find anymore the materials, or they cannot find the know-how how to build as the ancestors they just applied cement, or they applied bricks, or whatever they find in that moment in that situation.
So what we can do is a desperate situation, or we have the opportunity to do something. So we go around to try to collect the best practice that we could find around Spain. There are a lot of initiatives, private, publics, and so on. And with this best practice, we organize these 6 strategies that we can maybe use to preserve this architecture. First of all, the knowledge. Of course, preservation always starts with knowledge. If we don't know what we have in front, we cannot preserve. So first stage is the knowledge. The second one is the valorization, is how we can help people to value this architecture that is, at the end, is their own architecture, is not mine architecture, is their own architecture. So how we can help them to value this architecture. Then the protection, that is something that is necessary. We need to list building. If the building is not listed, maybe we can find the rubbish in front. So we need to list the building. Then the conservation. The conservation is something that needs expertise. Not everybody could conserve or preserve this building. So we need people with expertise in that and knowledge to do it. And in this at this point, we need the 5th strategy that is training. So we need to train the people in all the stages, from the administration, the architects, technicians, conservationists, and so on, and the bricklayer, the enterprises. We need to train in them. And then the innovation, we'll see, we think that it's important, because if we could continue building with these techniques, with these ideas, we also help to maintain the heritage, not only the historical building, but this intangible heritage that is the knowledge of this architecture. So very quickly, some example. For example, we need all together study, still research about this architecture. Everyone in our little place maybe, but we need to understand more, to know more about this architecture. Education from the beginning. So it's something that is very important to fight against this discredit in this architecture, to help the children, for example, or the young people, to touch them, to understand how to build with them, and also to understand that it's creative, interesting. We can still work with that. Protection, so the idea of not only the World Heritage, big monuments or big architecture, but we need listed in regional, local places, so maybe are not so impressive architecture, but we need to preserve it. And then conservation, we will speak more about it. We need to conserve and restore monumental and vernacular architecture. Then the training. So we organize a lot of workshops for the training from the bricklayers till the students and the people in general. Then training or dissemination is also, for example, manuals. We have done a lot of manuals in different techniques to try to split the knowledge of how to construct, how to build, how to restore this architecture. And then the innovation from the tradition. We will explain more about this. So 6 parts. We show you very briefly, 3 cases of restoration in Spain that we have done. So the first one is this tower is a tower from the Islamic period, is from the 13th century, and it's the only part that is remaining from a village, an Islamic village at that time. So you can see all the archaeological remainings, and this is the tower. So
Thank you.
okay, thank you. So this is the tower before the conservation work. It was a rammed earth construction, and you can see the construction here it was 21 layer of rammed earth. It was a really big structure. Well, sorry, it lose all the interior floors and the stairs, so it was completely void. And we studied a lot before starting with the conservation process. So we studied the construction system, the formwork, all the traces of the construction to try to understand how they built it. So this is the idea of how they built it with this formwork. There were continuous formwork. Is not the typical rammed earth that it's a module. In this case, was a continuous formwork to build half of the tower and then the other half of the tower, each layer. So they were doing half a tower in one layer and then turn the formwork and build the other half of the tower. We found all the traces of the floors, so we could understand how was built the interior. So here, this. Okay, so it was with a double direction floor with a principal beam and then little beams. Okay. And this is the restoration process very quickly, where we clean it, we make all the joints, where we put the joints, and then we fill some gaps that we had, not with rammed earth in this case, because the rammed earth, we had the gaps not in a vertical way, but in horizontal way. So it's very difficult to ram in horizontal way. So in this case, we use a masonry with lime, with hydraulic lime in this case. And you can see here, for example, this was a gap that we fill in the tower. So this is the tower at the end from the exterior, the exterior with all the gap filled and the conservation work. And then in the interior, we rebuilt the floors and the stairs exactly where they were, but with new floors and with the new bins, in wood bins, and the stairs with metallic structure. So you can see the interior, and this is the tower finished. No, lo has finished.
Second case is a thatch hut near Valencia. We have a lagoon near Valencia with a lot of rice fields and a very traditional lagoon. Once, that means like 100 and 150 years ago, there were thousands of these thatch huts around. It's a symbol of Valencia. We went to Valencia. It's difficult. You find many more thatch houses in miniature, in souvenirs, in a shop that thatch houses remaining. There are only like 50 left of that. But it's a kind of heritage of all over the world. You can see these thatch houses with this very steep roof all over the world, even in Japan, in all Europe, in the delta of rivers like the Nile, the Danube, the Po. I mean, it's very common to find this type of construction, normally built sometimes with stone walls, but many times with earthen walls, and then with these reed and thatch houses. So this is a typical view that you can see in Valencia. And you can see, for example, the walls, the adobe walls. We were speaking with the students. They usually planted some geranium here because the geranium are thirstier of water than the adobe. So whenever it rains, the geranium takes all the water. So it is a way of maintenance. It's not decorative. It's just because it has some reason. Of course, these type of thatch houses have this problem when the infiltration comes, and then you have to repair it. You have to make a maintenance. If not, it will go down quickly. In fact, we received this commission from a private entrepreneur. This is in 2018 when we began working, and you can see while we were making the project, especially when we were waiting for the permission of the city hall, it was going down and opening, and it was really dangerous. It was like finishing. Even you can see here, it's amazing how the walls were leaning outwards because the inner ties were broken. Were not broken, were eaten up by termites. They were all full of termites. So they eaten the ties, and the ties just didn't work anymore as a tension ties. So the walls were like pressure, and the color ties there, and the color ties are working as a compression. They began to work as a tension also, and they were like pushing, and it was about to fall. Okay, so we arrived just in time. So we made adobe. We were making adobe in molds like the traditional way, just using earth and straw, and then we put another wall on the sides just to compensate this leaning, and we connect these two walls of adobe with reed. So the reed was connecting one and the other. You can see here the reed. The adobe is being put with a mortar, mortar with a little earth, mortar with a little lime. And then after dismounting after dismounting the structure, so we were working back, mounting the new structure. I mean, now it has a double layer. That means it has the reed inside, but also has some isolation layer, even some fireproof layer, and then the outside reed, the outside thatching. So it is, I mean, it's difficult to explain now very quickly, but it has if there's a fire inside, the fire won't go outside, and if there's a fire outside, it won't come inside. And that's because there's a big layer of natural cork and some natural gypsum layers, etc. Because this thatch hut is going to be a restaurant, so that's like fighting against everything, against all the codes, and especially in a very rigid system like we have in Spain. Okay, so this is the way we were like collecting the thatch, and then this is the house. This is the thatch hut when it was finished with a burnished lime and earth layer here, and this is the kitchen, and all the structure back, and well, you can see by yourself. And we were working with a local know-how, local trades, and so on. It was quite fun. It was not so easy because the enterprise maybe, I mean, it was not used to work on that type of buildings, but we made it. And the third case and final case is this house in a village where it's this house here. It's surrounded by gray houses, not because because they were all Portland cemented. So because in this village, everybody was like very proud of having Portland cement on the facade. And we had this house, the only house that's still with gypsum render. So the state was is a very difficult state. It was about to fall, okay? And this house is built, let's see here, has gypsum pillars, it has masonry, stone masonry, and it has ram earth walls, and the party walls are ram earth. Okay, let's have a look, quickly look. So first of all, we were restoring the roof, then we were restoring the walls. You can see here the ram earth, like consolidating with lime, and putting some reed also as connectors to put back some earth when it was washed up, and then recovered. And then we also use earth to we use earth and straw to use to put the roof tiles. It was a local system of putting the roof tiles, because it is a very adherent mortar and it allows the tile to heat and to span and to move. Okay, this is the restoration of the floors that made with gypsum and gypsum vaulting between joists, and we made it with this natural, I mean, local systems with reed and gypsum, or with hemp string and gypsum. So reinterpreting the local systems. And these are the pavement on the right. Here you can see this is the pavement with an underlayer with cork, the pavement with lime layer, and upstairs a gypsum layer. This is a gypsum pavement. It is polished and then oiled. And this is the result. I mean, and now it's a very comfortable house, and it's very easy to maintain, very isolated because of ram earth and gypsum. It's so warm. This is the house from outside. And what's important here is that we measure the life cycle analysis of this restoration, and we compare it with other life cycle analysis of other buildings, and we compared. I mean, we made like 3 cases. First case was like preserving or updating, or let's say just updating the house with natural materials and techniques. The second option was to update a house with industrial materials, with normal industrial materials. And the third option was demolish the house and making a new house. And we have plenty of examples in the village, okay? And so we realized that if using the first option, the option with natural materials, we achieve up to an 80% of carbon savings. It's amazing. I mean, it's even a 50% over an updating with industrial materials. So that's a revolution. I mean, if we could convince the people to use natural materials, natural techniques, local materials, and use it in restoring their own houses, this could be a lot of savings for the planet. And well, this is only, I mean, this is what, of course, our friend who is here and a scholar, Carl Elefante, who says that the greenest building is the one that it's already built. But we have to prove it. So we have proved it. So not only that we have proved that if you want, the greenest building is the one that it's already built and it's restored with natural materials. But what about the cheapest building or the cheapest updating? Because the people say, okay, I would like to have a house like that, but it will cost me a lot of money. It's much better to demolish it and to build a new one. So we had to show what happens with the money. So we made some analysis of what happened with the money. So we were comparing the whole amount of money that you need to restore it and the whole amount of money that you need to demolish it, to make it new. And it was like, even in a case of a disparate case, let's say like this house, it was even cheaper to preserve it, to update it, than to demolish it, okay? It is more headache for the architect if you want, but it's also funny. I mean, life is funnier if you have some challenges to overcome. Anyway, the problem was not, even if we accept that it is like same price to update and to demolish and to make a new, let's see what happens inside the price, because there are some surprises. For example, the doors and windows, you know that all the prices are divided into manpower, equipment, and materials. This is the structure of a price. So if we restore it, most of the money will be manpower. Let's say 90% will be manpower. So we will, if it costs me restore a door $1,000, $900 will go to the carpenter, to the local trade, okay? And you will help him. And only 10% will go to the equipment and to materials, to some walks, some timber for repairs. But if we buy this new door, most of the money will be materials. So what happens? I mean, the money will remain in the planet. Okay, we won't go to Mars, but probably we're going to buy the door that is produced, let's say, in New York or in another place. Okay, I mean, we are investing the same money, but the money goes otherwhere. So that's important. I mean, if you are conscious, that if you are aware that with what's happening with the money, then it's very good to preserve, to update, and to use local trades. So all these three examples, I mean, take us to understand maybe that we are respecting the principles of environmental, sociocultural, and socioeconomic sustainability. This is a kind of a sustainability will that we developed some years ago with some partners in a European project called Versus, and in which we made like this big cheese divided in three portions: the environmental, the sociocultural, and the socioeconomic sustainable principles that you can see here. I mean, you can download this. This is for free, and it's a kind of a qualitative method to understand if I am being sustainable while projecting, while designing the building, while restoring, etc.
Okay, last but not least, the innovation from tradition. So very quickly, we want to explain you, well, all around the world. There are people that are still working, or they are working with earthen architecture, because it's not only tradition, give us opportunity for innovation, for aesthetics, for trying to find a new architecture. So it's not something that it's not possible to use nowadays, or it's only in the past. So we can do it. So we show you very, very quickly two projects where we had the chance to work. So the one was in Burkina Faso, and was a collaboration with ONG in NGO in Burkina Faso, where they need to build a secondary school in a village where there were only primary school. So the nearest secondary school was 30 kilometers away. So very few children could study there. So they need to build a new school or a secondary school. The primary schools there were all like this. So they call it like French school or French style, built by French people with cement and metal roof. And this is horrible during the rainfall season because the sound is too much to stay inside, and it's horrible in all around the year for the temperature because it reaches very high temperature like an oven. So it's horrible all around the year. So the idea was to try to find the way to build with the local materials and with an innovation in the type of building, of course. So we collaborate with these people that you could see here, that it's a group of volunteers to build this building. And the project that they had made is this one. Oops, sorry. This one is the new building that is built with CEB, local CEB, and with walls and vaults. So what we have done, we tried with the materials, we tried to build the CEB with the earth, local earth, with very simple machine to help the people there to how to construct the building. And then we have made a workshop with local people, with the workers that have to build the building. And then we also work with the children that were the future users of the building to try to explain them, because it was the better way to build the new building than the French school that they were in at this time. So it was like a participation project to try to explain to the community that was a better way to build. The other project was in Nepal and was after the earthquake in 2015, where many traditional buildings were destroyed. And after the earthquake, many people rebuilt their own houses with cement, concrete, metal, and so on, because of the fear of the earthquake. That is something that we can understand. Of course, the building were falling down, so they wanted something that was more resistant. So they tried to find another way. So we tried to build a prototype in collaboration with a body that is a foundation there, a foundation that is related with earth and architecture and bamboo. So we tried to design a model of new building, a very new little building, a house for them that was using earth and bamboo instead of concrete and metal and so on, but it in the way of resistance in front of earthquake, of course. So this was also the workshop that we have done there with workers, with students, with the people. And this is the model, the final model, with ram earth, with this tile bolt, and then the upper structure is built with bamboo. These are more workshops also with the students, the architecture students, and with the children that will use this type of architecture. So finally, to conclude, the idea of this excursus was, of course, try to give some possible answers, not the answers, but some possible answers to the first questions. What is earth and architecture, and why is still interesting today. So was our way around the world and around this earthen architecture. And why is still interesting for us? Because it's recovering values and local identity, recovering history and memory, of course, recovering existing buildings. They are still there, so it's more sustainable a building that is still there. Use of local materials and resources, promote environmental sustainability, create jobs in restoration, create jobs in management, tourism also, and fix local population, promote socioeconomic sustainability, and promote sociocultural sustainability. So why we are not using this type of architecture? Why we are not appreciating this? So finally, we think that it's necessary to move in all the directions. We cannot move only in one direction. So we need to study and know more about our architectural heritage. It's needed to work in conservation and preservation, in dissemination and education, in innovation and in sustainable development. And it's something that we have to work all together, because if we don't work one part of this machine, everything is falling. So we need to work in all these directions. So thank you for your attention. These are all our contacts. You can find us everywhere. You can also see all the materials in the website. We have everything upload, so you can download books, articles, projects, everything that you need are there. So thank you.
Take questions.
Thank you.
Well, we take questions only if they are easy.
Hey.
What's up? Thank you for the presentation. It was really good. What's the typical foundation like for the brick mounds? I saw some with rubble and stone. Others, is there a lot of concrete use, or what did you guys find?
You mean a traditional way?
Yes.
Normally, they put like a masonry, a stone masonry. It's just some of them they just are on the earth, but most of them has like 30 to 50 centimeters of stone masonry. For example, the thatch hut was just on the earth, but it has this geranium on the side, and people say, geranium is so decorative. No, not decorative. It's so good, and everybody was very surprised. They said, why? Well, I mean, they are not stupid. I mean, they have worked so many centuries. They know what they have to plant there. Huh?
Yeah, a quick question, actually. Thank you very much for the presentation. LCA, I think, is fundamental in understanding traditional architecture, traditional buildings. The first question is, have you, in your research, done work connecting, say, for example, the U-value measurements with thermal environments?
Sorry.
Okay.
So
what I'm doing is, for example, I work on U-value measurements, and I
Yes.
work on indoor thermal environments. And one of the things that people push back against traditional materials is very poor thermal value, U-value.
Yeah.
So I'm research in that area.
It's good that you have a microphone. It's better that we can hear. Yes. It doesn't work. Okay, we have understood it already. I mean, we haven't done yet. We're going to do it in the project we're working now. And we're happy to collaborate with you. We have already spoken about that. So very happy, because we see the problem now in Europe. I mean, there are hundreds of millions just being paid for changing
Everything.
windows, for changing that are not probably not so efficient. And or at the end, the life cycle analysis of the whole is not so efficient. So
I think it's also, well, it's quite sad reading because they are changing everything. They are changing all the windows. They are changing all the renderings, and because it's more efficient. Okay, maybe it's more efficient, but the problem is that you are producing plastic, you are producing cement, you are changing everything, you are losing your culture, you are losing your know-how. So what is really efficient? And it's really sad, but it's.
Yeah. And then the second question relates to some of the research. It showed you work with students. What level of students were you working with? Just for us to know.
Oh, that's very, very nice. That's very nice because we have made workshops for 1 year students, 1 year old students. I mean, we have in kindergarten, and it was great fun. I mean, it was fun. I mean, we worked with professionals also, and because you have to begin from the early stage. But then when it comes to the university, to the campus, we have opened even against a little the routine in the university. We have opened, and so there are architectural students where we have invited bricklayers. There are some owners, 80 years old owner who wants to know, and so all together. And it's amazing because everybody has something to help to contribute and so on. And it's amazing. We love this type of workshops. We stopped during the pandemics, and we are beginning now back to do it because they are great fun. Architecture students are so happy to leave the pencil or the computer and begin to get dirty and so on. And so, like, now I understand. And people normally say, now I understand how to do it. No? So
it's very important also work with the bricklayers because the students in general arrive like, wow, I know everything, and it's okay, but I don't know how to do it. And the other one is, I know how to do it, but in general it's not so good in shape and so on. So the combination is very interesting, and they also learn how to appreciate the others. So
it's very educative in
Yeah.
that sense. I mean, it's
good.
so good. I mean, to get people together and to understand that there are different approaches.
And it was good. 1 year we make an experimentation we have a summer school for children, for the children of the professors and students in the university. So during one summer, we make a experimentation with all the children of the summer school, 750 children. Okay, so during 1 month, we make everything with earth. We call it the earth corner, and they pass through the corner and make things and so on. And all the professors, all the students, when we were meeting them, or we met them, they said, you are why my children are always dirty. So, yeah. But it was interesting because the children were speaking to the parents at home, and everybody in university know what's happened there. So it was like a good experimentation to see how to spread the ideas.
I remember one kid like having fun during some hours, like building, because they were building collectively a hut, an earthen hut. And so after the morning, he was so happy, and then he saw himself. It was like not anymore white, but it was brown. And he said, "Oh, my mom is going to kill me."
Yes, thank you. I'm curious to know, have there been studies or tests to compare the seismic performance of, say, earthen and timber buildings versus contemporary construction? I realize real world results are hard to come by, thankfully. There aren't that many earthquakes, but in terms of testing or any kind of observation, are there advantages to the earthen systems over the modern system?
Well, for example,
Okay, well, I don't think there are advantages, are different type of buildings. So when we speak about earthen architecture, we are speaking in general about 1 floor, 2 floor building, very regular, very simple with very little windows. So it depends of the type of building. We are not trying to build a skyscraper with earth, of course. So
Like comparing similar buildings but different materials.
well, really in the traditional way of work in earth and earthquake prone area, they have a lot of devices, for example, connection, the way to build the roof, using timber, using bamboo, using other materials to connect the building. And then, of course, the dimension and so on. We didn't make any proof of that or calculation of that exactly. We do it for the model for Nepal. We have done the calculation and it's working, so it's correct. We didn't make the comparison with the same structure.
Design, I think it would be different.
Yeah.
Anyway, the behavior is different because I mean, an earthen half timber will try to move, and so then the energy of the seism will go with the movement, while reinforced concrete will try to be rigid. That is some way. Ram earth is also behaving like a rigid one because it has a lot of inertia. We have photos of a friend who was in Morocco during the earthquake and in a village with 5 or 6 stories made of ram earth, and she was on top of the terrace, and then she began to move like that, and they said, well, that's all, I mean, that's the end, she thought. And then it stopped, and then went down. I mean, the next day she was making photos, we were showing to the students, not a crack in all the village, because it behaved so well. Of course, the adobe should be lower and should have chains. If the chains are not maintained, or if they are rotten, or if you have put some weight in cement or reinforced concrete, then you're finished. That's what happened in many cases. No? So it depends. You have to respect the way of behavior of each building, I think, or of course, you can also help with new devices, like compatible devices to help more ties or more chains or whatever. I mean, that's what we try when we restore it.
Hello. Thank you for the great presentation. A question on policy, and especially relating to the building code. Have you ever encountered this challenge? There was a second case study that you're presenting on conservation. Was this the reason why it took so long for approval? And I ask this because I'm from Kenya, and the building code there does not actually delisted, does not have wattle and daub as a building material, and it's one of the most popular building materials in most communities in Kenya. So was that a challenge, and how did you go about it?
Yeah, we don't have a regulation for earthen architecture. We only have for CEB in Spain, but not for ram earth, adobe, that it's all around.
We are in a committee now making a regulation for ram earth, for example.
But they are trying a lot of years, and it's quite difficult. So the good point for preservation is that in Spain you are allowed to, in conservation and preservation building, you can work with the same material, not build new building. But there are a lot of experience of new building with ram earth and adobe, and in general what they can do is to justify that it's more or less the same. So maybe you have to build a big or thick ram earth wall, or something more, give more structure or more strength to the structure, and then you can justify that it's the same. In the case of Spain, we can do it if we take the responsibility of that. That is quite challenging because you don't have the responsibility of the rules of the code. So you say, okay, I'm an architect and I am responsible for this building. You can do it.
We have an architect quite famous in Spain who made a house with a cantilever of 29 meters made of plastic. And he assumed the responsibility, and that's all. I mean, he was sure of that.
Yeah, you can do it, but of course, not everybody wants to do it. So, and why it takes so many times? And
well, we have asked now permission for a conservation work in a village, and it will take 1 week to 15 days. But Valencia City is famous for long waiting list because of so many requests. But it's only a problem of the city, maybe.
No, it's more a problem of the administration system, and that it's quite difficult.
And it
That's
is
more
strange because I mean Valencia has a bad conscience about these such acts because they have been destroying these during the last 100 years. I mean, because of fires, so it's understandable. But now the very few that remain, they are very well protected. And so they have to control everything. They wanted that and that and that and that. And even in our case that we are more or less known there and they know that we're not going to destroy that, we were requested more and more and more. And it was a restaurant, so everybody was so afraid of a restaurant. So they wanted to be sure that they were not taking the responsibility. The responsibility was ours. So it took so long.
Thank you. Thank you for a great lecture, and particularly for your work. I have 3 questions. One more than John and I got. The first is you please clarify the difference between the environmental performance of these buildings, let's say in the Atlas on a mountain, which is high up with the diurnal temperature is quite. The diurnal temperature ranges across a very large spectrum, gets pretty cold at night. And let's say the same buildings in the Sahara. That's the first question. The second is if you shed some light on these extraordinary buildings in Yemen that are 4 and 5 and 6 stories high in Sana'a. And the third and more. And the third one is a slightly more complicated question, which is how do these buildings work as a city, not as a single building? How do they relate to each other? How do they relate in the way they thrust force one on top of the other? How do they provide buildings of different sizes and kinds that can organize a civic life?
Well, I will begin with the third one, because when we were studying the vulnerability, we saw that from the point of view of seismic behavior, the fact of being together, and they were like counterbalancing them. So it was helping, the whole was helping to withstand the seismic value. So it was good. It was also good from the point of view of thermal isolation, of course.
Well, this is the thing. The earthen architecture or the earthen construction has a big inertia. So it's this is the most important point. So it's working in a good way in the mountain and in the sun, because the inertia of the walls is really important. So in the mountains it's working against the cold, and in the sun against the sun, of course, the heat. So for example, in our case, we found differences in Spain from the north to the south, the type of architecture, the type of construction. For example, in the south, we have a big round earth walls, and in the north is more adobe and of timber. So in the north is more related with maybe it's not so thick the wall. In the south is a big wall and is a little building because it's seismic. So there is a relationship between the climate and the geology. So for example, earthquake prone area or not. And then the third was the Yemen.
Oh,
About
we direct a PhD on Yemen houses, and it's in English. So I mean, it's nice to see. There, I mean, they are even 8 stories, and they are made with very flat adobe, and then they change.
Yeah.
Oh, they are very thick. They are changed, and then they have a very still alive. A nice system of making a kind of burnished lime layer on top to avoid the water infiltration, and that's all. I mean, it's working. I mean, of course, the houses they have like I don't know how few feet, but they're not so high. They're small. You know? So I mean, you're right.
You see 8 stories, but maybe it's 4 or 5 in the height.
Only because they sit almost just in very low seats and so on. But it's only just flat adobe and very changed with wood and so on, and very thick at the bottom, and then just tapering up. Just no more than that.
Well, it's similar to the Torre Bofilla, that is tapering like this. So they are all connected all around, and then they are a little bit like this, so they can grow more.
What is the way forward for art and architecture, since we now can't do like a new construction in most countries? Like
Which is the name?
What do you see like art and architecture taking? What direction do you see it taking? Because we can't do new construction in most countries because of the regulations.
We have to fight to do it. We need to do it. So what we can do, I don't know.
We have, the business, our business is more like historic preservation, but we have friends who are always building new things, and they build earth and architecture, and they made amazing things. And they can do it. I mean, they just fighting. They used to justify once first project maybe takes longer because you have to write and explain and so on. Second project is like more like easier to justify that. And I mean, I think it's that. I mean, that and other techniques traditional are the future. Because I mean, they're just so convincing from the point of view of carbon footprint and bioclimatic that I mean, if not, we're going to suicide collectively. I mean, we need to find a solution for the future. I mean, we cannot be producing carbon. We need to find a solution.
Yeah. For example, in the case of Queré, do you know about Queré in Burkina? For example, you use sometimes some concrete connections and something that, okay, it's quite in the middle. It's not completely earth and architecture. He puts something more in the structure, but of course, it's like 80% earth. So it's not 100%, but okay, it's something in a way. So maybe you cannot do everything or little by little, or you have to fight a little bit. So it's just trying to do more and more and more and try to convince. I think
architecture students, yours to the future.
Yeah.
Come on. No, it's true. You have to find solutions. I mean, you have to find ways of continuing.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a beautiful presentation. I wonder if in part this is a marketing problem. The trash bins were particularly suggestive and kind of poetic, the way you talked about them too, in relationship to earthen buildings, but I was thinking of places like the Trulli in southern Italy, or even the windmills in Holland that have successfully, the tourism bureau has sort of, really become the spokesperson for this kind of traditional building. And I wondered if in the case of Spain, there's a similar kind of push to promote this heritage.
There's not so much till now. We have something in some area, for example, in Castilla y León with pajares. Yeah, so well, they have these particular buildings where they use it for birds and so on in the past. Now are completely void, but now they are all connected, all the region, so they are working in the protection of this building and organizing tours and so on to maintain them. So they are all listed, all protected, and they are there. There's not really a movement till now in this direction. I don't know if it's good or not. Sometimes I think we need to some idea like this, like the Trulli, that it's one village, but then around Puglia you have a lot more. But it's one that it's very famous. Maybe we need one very famous, and then we can have more. Yeah, maybe it's an idea, a possibility. We were speaking during a lot of years with the Ministry of Culture, because we think that it's interesting, for example, a TV documentary, promotion in the media or something like this, but they had to do. I cannot do it myself because it's something very small. So we need something more general. And for example, the dry stone, when the dry stone construction was World Heritage, from the World Heritage list, was really important everywhere in Spain, but in all the Mediterranean, everybody was putting money to restoring dry stone. So this is one of the ideas that we had to try to declare or to list the Herden architecture as World Heritage, for example, because it's very similar to dry stone. Thank you.
One last question. Since you were working on these projects and engaging with communities for a while, so after you finished your project and you left the site, were there any good initiatives from the communities to continue work? And if not, why not? And the second part of the question is, when we see like internationally more and more people interested in environmental architecture and earthen architecture specifically, so is there any downside of international communities or international students or a group like coming to local communities to engage with them or not? Thank you.
Well, regarding the first question, or the first part of the question, of course, I mean, you don't push one piece and it moves like that and you just push a little bit and sometimes it goes like that, or sometimes it's spread some way that you are not aware of. For example, we have been publishing many manuals that you can download, like on historic preservation and so on. And then you arrive to the village. For example, we made a handbook on preservation in the village, in an area. After 10 years or 15 years, you go there and they haven't done exactly what you were saying, but you see that they changed the way of, so it's helping. I mean, not maybe 100%, but it is like helping a little bit. In fact, they have taken this handbook and they have in the city hall and say, you have to do like that. Then, I mean, there's an interpretation, but I mean, you see that this is helping somehow. Less than doing nothing, of course. And the second one, like.
Second, I don't remember the second, sorry.
Second part was regarding the international
Yeah.
students and the groups coming to local communities. So is there any bad effect on this? Like engagement would be a bad effect or no?
I think that if you go with student in the community, I think it's always important. It's something that really, for example, we experimented during many years in the same area. And was interesting because arriving there with students from abroad, and many of them were from other countries, they arrive and they ask to the people how it works this and how it was this building, and they show they're interested in the building, and the people are, why you are so interested in this building? Yeah. So they were asking, and at the end, the people really see what they didn't see before. So it's like, okay. So I have also another building like this. Could you come and see it and study? So the people, I think the students from abroad, or people from abroad, they study the village or work in the village and so on, they really could move because they live with them, they try to understand, and it's something that I think it's important to move really the people inside the village. It's quite difficult to move the communities. Everybody is speaking about the community engagement and so on, and it's quite the most difficult part, I think. It's much more difficult than working with materials and structures. And working with people is the difficult part, really, I think. But we have to do it. We have to try to do it.
I think that's the perfect conclusion. Thank you. And for any more questions, you're more than welcome to email Camilla.